New Orleans in the 1860s was a city of contrasts and complex social fabric. The narrow, winding streets of the French Quarter, houses with wrought-iron balconies, tall doors with carved moldings, all created the sense of a life on the edge of chaos. The city breathed history, the scent of damp wood, spices, smoke from stoves, and freshly baked bread mingled with the smells of bustling markets, shops, and the port where ships arrived from across the Caribbean. People knew that life here was closely entwined with death. Disease, crime, sudden deaths, all were part of daily life. But behind ordinary noises lurked a mysterious and dangerous culture: voodoo. Voodoo was never mere magic. It was a language of memory, trauma, and psychology, a way to influence a world that seemed chaotic and threatening. Rituals reflected fear and the desire to control fate, from slavery to freedom, from illness to survival, from poverty to power. In the early 1860s, rumors began to circulate that even the oldest residents could not explain. They spoke of mysterious figures leaving symbols on doors and walls, gris-gris pouches, and of strange disappearances. Locals called them variously les ombres noires, the dark shadows, night guardians, the cursed of the quarter. All these events were connected to a new form of ritual, aimed not at protection, but at punishment, fear, and control. The consequences were felt in the daily lives of the city's inhabitants. Part 2. The disappearance of John Riley. March 1861. John Riley, a 39-year-old cotton merchant, lived on Orleans Street. He was practical and never gave any credence to superstitions. On March 17, 1861, Riley did not return from work at the warehouse. 2 days before his disappearance, a small pouch made of rough fabric, tied with a red thread, appeared at his doorstep. Inside were tiny bones, ashes, and a metal button. It was a gris-gris, but with a special knot, the punishment knot rarely seen in New Orleans. His wife, Elizabeth, threw the pouch away, thinking it was a prank. John went to the warehouse and vanished. No body, no traces of struggle were ever found. But 2 nighttime laborers later claimed they saw him at the gates of the quarter. A pale woman in white walked silently beside him, unnaturally still. The pouch Elizabeth threw away also disappeared. The case was never officially investigated, but the residents began whispering about a curse that became part of the city's folklore. Part 3. Fire on Ursuline Street, July 1862. A small house on Ursuline Street caught fire suddenly during the night. The owner, Margaret Blaine, was asleep and miraculously survived, but the house burned completely. Firefighters found a charred piece of wood with a carved symbol, a distorted vive, a voodoo ritual sign. Its form did not match any known LWA spirits and alarmed those familiar with the traditions. Neighbors reported hearing the sound of drums in an abandoned garden behind the house, though no ritual gatherings were known in the quarter that night. In the morning, no trace remained except 3 symbols drawn in ashes. Margaret admitted that weeks earlier she had thrown away a gris-gris found at her doorstep. Part 4. The epidemic on St. Philippe Street, August 1863. 7 people living in the same block fell ill simultaneously. Symptoms included weakness, high fever, and hallucinations. The unusual aspect was that each person had found identical symbols on their doorstep the night before, a circle crossed by 2 lines. Old Creole woman Matilda Barange explained, "This is not real voodoo, it's counterfeit, and counterfeit is far more dangerous than true practice." The case attracted attention from doctors and city authorities. though no one could explain how the symbols coincided among several people. Part 5th, Shadows at St. Louis Cemetery. Number 1, 1864. St. Louis Cemetery. Number 1. The oldest in the city, with above-ground tombs and narrow paths. Even during the day, shadows dominated. Night guards saw people placing bones, coins, and drawings on tombs. Guard David Lorick reported that one night he saw 3 figures near an old tomb. They held their hands on the slab and whispered words in an unknown language. When he shouted, the figures disappeared, as if dissolved into the air. On the slab remained a symbol, identical to those found during the Ursuline Street fire, and a grisgris tied with a red thread. Part 6th, The Case of Antoine Duverne, 1866. Antoine Duverne, a young Creole skeptic, often found small pouches at his door and threw them away. A week before his disappearance, someone drew a symbol on his wall, a circle with 4 lines. On November 18th, Antoine vanished. In his room, only a red thread and the faint smell of burned herbs remained. Neighbors reported hearing knocks at night, but no one was found. Rumors quickly spread through the city about a curse. Part 7th, Mysterious Signs and Observations. All of these events shared common features: gris-gris with distorted knots, symbols not corresponding to traditional practices, sudden disappearances, nighttime figures that could not be caught, knocking and whispering at doors, the smell of burned herbs, the feeling of being watched. Old residents said, "Someone played with voodoo without understanding its power, and the consequences were terrible." Some believed it was the work of young Creoles experimenting with forbidden rituals. Others thought powerful individuals were trying to manipulate Afro-Creole neighborhoods through fear. Whispers also spoke of a woman living on the outskirts of the French Quarter, but no evidence was ever found. Part 8th, Life in the French Quarter. New Orleans in the 1860s was more than mystery. It was markets, taverns, port docks, crowded streets, and nightly boat crossings on the Mississippi. Merchants, sailors, craftsmen, wanderers, free Afro-Creoles, and recently freed slaves all worked and lived here. Every disappearance, every strange sign, every figure at night affected daily life. People feared leaving doors open, chose routes to avoid suspicious alleys, and watched where they walked after dark. Even street vendors preparing coffee and spices at dawn whispered about the curse, discussing strange symbols and vanishings. Part 9th, The Final Traces. By the late 1860s, rumors had nearly vanished, but faint symbols occasionally appeared at St. Louis Cemetery Number 1 and empty courtyards in the quarter. Residents said, if you find a pouch on your doorstep, do not touch it. Whoever left it may not have understood the power they tried to wield. The curse, or its imitation, left a memory of fear and the unknown, living among the streets, houses, markets, and port docks of New Orleans.